Hello bookworms! Today I'm going to be talking about all of the science fiction and fantasy releases that I'm excited for that are coming out in May. I feel like there's like a little bit of a resurgence of science fiction dystopian novels and I'm kind of like here for it. I think I was really burnt out on dystopian back in its heyday when it was like peak Hunger Games and Divergent and all of that going on time. I recently reread The Hunger Games, but I also recently read the first trilogy in the Red Rising saga, which is also like a bit dystopian, and I'm really enjoying it. Maybe it has to do with all of the political turmoil within the US, but I am really finding solace in watching people fight for the good in humankind. There's also been a lot of medieval fantasy that is happening lately, and I am also here for that. I love traditional fantasy with sword fighting and castles and all of that kind of stuff. And we also have 2 books this month that deal with magical libraries, so I feel like there's a lot to look forward to and a lot to be excited about. So first on my list on May 2nd is The Sword Defiant. This is by Gareth Ryder Hanrahan. It's coming out from Orbit Books, and this one is actually a contender for my most anticipated book on this list. Again, loving the resurgence of medieval fantasy. The Sword Defiant is set in a world of dark myth and dangerous prophecy, and it tells the epic story of daring warriors, living weapons, and bloodthirsty vengeance. It follows Sir Alfric, who previously saved the kingdom along with his 9 companions, and Alfric had seized the cursed weapons of the Dark Lord. But then, years later, Alfric learns of a new, terrifying threat. He seeks his 9 heroes once again, but they are wandering adventurers no longer. A lot of them have gotten older, have taken on political positions, and some of them have even turned evil themselves. So it's up to Alfric to try to stop this threat and to slay the monsters, even though some of them might have been his past friends. The next book on my list also comes out on May 2nd, and it is Dragonfall by L.R. Lamb. I was immediately drawn to this one because of the beautiful cover. I think this is absolutely gorgeous. This is the first book in a new series called the Dragon Scales trilogy, and in this magical new epic fantasy, long banished dragons who were revered as gods return to the mortal realm. Long ago, humans actually betrayed dragons, they stole their magic, they locked them away and banished them in a dying world. So now it's centuries later and the descendants of those humans still actually worship these dragons as gods, but the gods remember what was previously done to them, and they are not feeling the most forgiving. And this one has been said to be good for people who have enjoyed Priory of the Orange Tree, which I myself have not actually read just yet, but I do plan on doing so soon. And then this one just sounds really good. And I also do believe that there is a queer romance in the story. Another May 2nd release on my radar is The Ferryman by Justin Cronin. This newest release from the author of The Passage is a sci-fi dystopian thriller. It's about a group of survivors on a hidden island utopia that is not exactly what it seems. This island was founded by a mysterious genius known only as the Designer, and it lies hidden from the horrors of a deteriorating world. On this island paradise, residents enjoy long, fulfilling lives until the monitors that are embedded in their forearms go off. They are there in order to measure a person's physical and mental well-being, and once they go below 10%, people are basically retired. And what that means is that they get on a journey with a ferryman to another island called the Nursery, and it's there that their memories are wiped and their bodies are revamped so that they can start life anew. In this book, we are following a ferryman who has to take his father to be retired, and his father tells him a very cryptic kind of message, and he starts to question everything that he has believed to be the truth. This one sounds really, really interesting. And then yet another May 2nd release. May 2nd seems to be a huge day for SFF book releases this year. This one is Clytemnestra by Costanza Casati, and it is another Greek myth retelling. This is said to be good for fans of Jennifer Saint, Madeline Miller, and Natalie Haynes. Clytemnestra follows the most notorious villainess of the ancient world, and it tells the tale of the events that forged her into the legendary queen that she is. After being wronged many times over by her tyrant of a husband, Clytemnestra begins plotting, and she takes power for herself. Then on May 11th, this is probably the book that I'm the most excited for. It is The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. This is the first book in a new trilogy called the Library Trilogy. It follows a boy who has lived his entire life trapped inside a vast library, and a girl who has spent her life in a tiny settlement out on the dust where nightmares stalk and no one goes. And the two of their stories become very heavily intertwined, and they spiral around one another across both worlds and time. It's the tale of truth and lies and hearts, and the blurring of one into another. A journey on which knowledge erodes certainty, and though the pen may be mightier than the sword, blood will be spilled and cities will be burned. Then on May 16th, we have more of an honorary mention on this list because it is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, and R.F. Kuang is known for her fantasy novels. However, in Yellowface, she'll actually be dipping into more literary, contemporary fiction with like a hint of thriller. In this one, we're following Juniper Song, who is a New York Times best-selling sensation, but she is not who she says she is. She did not write the book that she claims to write, and she is most definitely not Asian American. This story explores questions on diversity, racism, and cultural appropriation within the publishing industry, as well as the persistent erasure of Asian American voices in the Western white world as a whole. Then on May 23rd, this is probably my second most anticipated book, might even be my most anticipated. There are so many good books in this list, but I'm really looking forward to this one, and that is The Will of Many by James Islington. This is the new book from the author of the Licanius trilogy, and it's the first in a new fantasy series called The Hierarchy. It takes place at the elite Catanian Academy, and it's one of the ones that has a little bit of a dystopian feel going on. We're following Viz Telemus, who is a young fugitive that has kind of infiltrated this academy. He's convinced them that he belongs there and to accept him, but what they don't know is that he's actually there to solve a murder, find an ancient weapon, and uncover secrets that could tear the Republic apart. Viz must rise through the academy's ranks by playing nice, all while concealing his hatred for the empire that is responsible for murdering his family. Kind of giving me Red Rising vibes, and it's already gotten a rave review from Patrick, so I'm really excited to read this one. He actually said in his review that it's like the best Academy book that he's read since Name of the Wind, and Name of the Wind has been one of my favorite books for ever, like for a million years. So I'm especially excited for this one. Then on May 23rd, we have another sci-fi thriller, and that is The Endless Vessel by Charles Soule. So I've actually never read a Charles Soule novel. However, I have read a ton of Charles Soule comics because he has written a ton of Star Wars comics, and I actually always end up loving his and finding many of the other ones to be very mediocre, so I'm pretty excited to read a full-length novel from him. The Endless Vessel is also on the dystopian side, and it explores the way that we're all connected and what can happen if we lose the capacity to find joy. It takes place just a few years in the future in a world very similar to ours, where there is a disease known as the Gray that is plaguing people. The Gray is basically like an intense depression, and there's no rhyme or reason to who it hits, when it's going to hit them, but once that somebody is afflicted with the Gray, there is no coming back from it. In this book, we're following Lily, who is a Hong Kong-based scientist, and she comes across something that seems to be calling to her and asking her to follow this path. So Lily leaves her life behind, and she sets out through time and space to see if the key to happiness could be in this endless vessel. Then another one that I'm like, maybe this is the one I'm most excited for, on May 30th is Witch King by Martha Wells. And before I talk about it, can I just say how annoying it is that I constantly keep calling it The Witch King, and when I type The Witch King into Goodreads, they're like, what? That book doesn't exist. It's just Witch King. But anyway, so this one follows a character named Cal who was murdered and whose consciousness went dormant. And during that time, he was completely unaware of the passage of time. Then he wakes up to find a lesser mage that is attempting to harness Cal's power as his own. And Cal has to figure out why he was imprisoned, what changed in the world since his assassination, and why the Rising World Coalition appears to be gaining so much influence. Cal's gonna have to pull his allies close to get the answers to these questions, none of which he's going to like. And then the last book on this list, and again, one I'm really excited for, is Inkblood Sister Scribe by Emma Torres. This is a debut fantasy novel following two estranged half-sisters who are tasked with guarding their family's magical library. After their father dies very suddenly while reading a book that one of the sisters has never seen before, the two of them must reunite and work together to unravel a deadly secret at the heart of their collection. It's a tale of familial loyalty, betrayal, and the pursuit of magic and power. Sounds so good. So those are the 10 books that I am most looking forward to in May. I actually had to cut books because there were so many coming out. It's gonna be like such a great It's going to be such a great month for new releases. Let me know what you're most excited to pick up in May. Let me know if any of these are on your TBR or if you're going to be adding them now. And that's all that I have for this video, so I will see you guys soon in a new one. Bye!